I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome once again to reading Machiavelli's Prince, where we continue where we left off. With last chapter was on three mixed principates. Now we're going to be dealing with chapter 4, which has a weird title. It says, "Why the kingdoms of Darius, which Alexander had seized, did not rebel against his successors after the death of Alexander." So the kingdom of Darius, the great emperor of the great emperor of the Persian Empire, who Alexander destroys, conquers, and then what happened? Why didn't they, the kingdom of Darius, the Persians, not rebel against the successors after Alexander died? Why? So let's deal with this question. Um, this is again conquering a province. This kind of continues the aspect of addressing you conquer at a progress. Why didn't they withdraw? Having considered the difficulties which are encountered in holding holding on to a state newly acquired, one might marvel how it came to pass that Alexander the Great, becoming Lord of Asia in a few years, and not yet fully conquered it, died, whereupon, if it would seem reasonable that the whole state should have rebelled, right? He conquered it. He conquered Alexander of Macedonia. Alexander the Great, became Lord in Asia, but not fully conquered it. But then he dies with not even fully conquering it. Die, but then the thing conquered doesn't rebel. He should have rebelled. Why? Nevertheless, the successors of Alexander maintained it, and they did not, in holding it, have any difficulties other than those which arose among themselves from their own ambitions. In other words, they held it. The only problems that the successors had of holding it, the successors of Alexander, they broke up into parts, and the parts that the various follower Alexander's generals or leader, part of Alexander's team, right, who took parts of what he conquered, it succeeded, and the only problems they had is their own ambitions, right, which rose among themselves from their own ambitions. I respond. Now this is one of those great I respond. Machiavelli has a note. Oregano, once again, a scholastic character, right? It makes I respond, a scholastic character. I respond that the principates of which we have memory are founded to be, in other words, that the principates of which we have memory, so principates, are they are to be governed in two diverse modes. Okay, these two diverse modes. That, in other words, that the principates of which we have memory are found to be governed in these two diverse modes. One, either by a prince, and all the others are his servant, whom, being ministers by his grace and permission, help him to govern that kingdom. So therefore, everyone else is being his ministers by his grace, can be removed by him. Centralized. This is a centralized system of rule. Everything is his, and everyone else belongs to him, and it goes to him. Centralized. Second, by a prince and barons, the latter having their rank not by the grace of the Lord, but by the antiquity of their blood. So therefore, this is the feudal structure. In other words, I have a prince and the barons have not from the grace, they're barons not because of him, but because they're themselves of the antiquity of their own blood. These barons have their own states and subjects who not only acknowledge them as lords, but have them in their natural affections. So these barons, these local barons, these local princes, these local leaders, these local regional things. Like this is France, example of France, of the Gascony, Normandy, Brittany, right? Right. All these have their own local lords who have their attachment to them. And as long as that their attachment to them, and he says that natural affections, right, have their lords, but they have them in their natural affections. States which are governed by a prince and servants hold their prince is more in more authority, because in all of his province there is no one recognized as his superior. And if they do not obey any others, they obey them as ministers and officials, and bear them no particular love. In other words, the other one is that he says now, the other ones, the Duke, two ways. One is a centralized state where all these people, all the ministers and all the officials are basically creatures created by the king, and they have no autonomy on their own. The second one is that they have autonomy on their own. They have their own little people population, and this is the feudal system, right? So a centralized system and a decentralized feudal system. Those are two structures. And he says he says that the second one, the first one, sorry, the states are governed by a prince, and the servants hold their prince more authority, because on their province there's no one recognized as his superior. Okay, so therefore the prince is the superior. No one's superior to him. And if they do obey any other, they obey them as ministers and officials, and bear no loyalty. They have no love of these officials. In our time, the example of these two different kinds of government are those of the Turk and those of the Kingdom of France, right? The Turk and the France. The Turk is a centralized ruler. The Sultan controls this like this, and the Kingdom of France, right? The whole monarchy of the Turks is governed by one lord. The others are his servant. The dividing his kingdom into Sangeli, again for Sangeli, Sangelici, um, footnote 4, the administrative district. The original meaning of the word seems to be banner or flag, right? The banners and flags. They scheme into these flags. He sends to these districts different administrators, changing and placing them as seems fit to him. So he just divides his kingdom up with flags into these regions, different districts, and then he puts whoever there, he moves them about as he seems fit. But the king of France is placed in the midst of a multitude of lords who of old are recognized in that state by their respective subjects and are loved by them. So the difference is that those officials are just they're creatures of the ruler of the Turks, the head, the Turk, the head of the Ottoman Empire. That he's in charge. He sends officials out there. They serve under his authority, and they can be moved and above. But this is what the Kingdom of France is: these barons are served by these barons who have their own populations are loyal to them. In other words, that the king does not create them in that sense, right? The king is placed in a multitude of lords. They have their privileges, and these the kings cannot take away without danger to himself, right? So the king cannot take the danger. He has to, he cannot take these. Whoever considers then the one and the other of these states, one will find that it is difficult to acquire the state of the Turk, but once conquered, it is easy to hold. And you, now 5, I think this is, I'm sorry, this is you, I think this is, the courteous, he's talking courteously now. He's now courteous. You, okay. Whoever considers one can take these states will find it will be difficult to hold and acquire the state of the Turk, but once conquered, it is easy to hold. And you, be courteous, will find, on the contrary, that it is in some respect easier to take the state of France, but but and that it is with great difficulty that one holds on to it. You can take it, but it's going to be difficult. In other words, that it's difficult to the Turkish one. It's difficult to take, but once you take it, it stays loyal. The French one, it's a little easier to take. It's a little simpler to take. It's in some respect easier to take the state of France, but it's very difficult to hold. The cause of the difficulty is being able to occupy the kingdom of the Turks. Are not that one cannot be called. In other words, the causes of the difficulty of being able to occupy the kingdom of the Turks are that one cannot be called in by the princes of that kingdom, nor can one hope to facilitate one's enterprise through the rebellion of those around him. In other words, you don't have a situation. You can't. You can't. It's difficult to take the kingdom of the Turks because one, there's no princes or powerful rulers independent of him that will that will are unhappy with him and that they will take him in because they have nothing. They have no loyalty of the people. They have no supporters or things like this. That's one. Two, one. Uh, 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 Nor is there any hope to facilitate one enterprise through the rebellions of those around him. It's not going to happen. This arises from the reasons mentioned above. For all being slaves and obliged to him, they are corrupted with more difficulty. And if one could indeed corrupt them, one cannot hope that they would be of much use, as they're unable to draw the people after them for the reasons given. In other words, you can't corrupt them. They're slaves. If you do that, you corrupt them. They're going to be even worse, and it's not. They're not useful. They're not useful in that sense. In other words, just fit this line again. If one could indeed corrupt them, because they're slaves, they are corrupted with more difficulty. Why? Because if one could corrupt them, one could not hope that they would be of much use, as they're unable to draw the people after them for the reasons given. They did not love people. Even if there is an official who's corrupt, okay, they're not going. The people that around the people in that region has no loyalty to them at all, right? Hence, it is necessary for whomever attacks the Turk to think that he will find him wholly united, and that he needs must hope more from his own forces than from other disorders. In other words, it's not from the internal disorders. You can't rely on the internal disorders or trying to get an ally within or corrupt a region to support or something like this. You have to take it on, and it's going to be united. You have to rely wholly on your force. But if the Turk were conquered and broken in the field in such a mode that he is not able to reform his armies, then one does not have to doubt anything other than the blood of the prince, which, when extinguished, leaves no one to fear, since no others have credit with the people. So as long as you kill the prince, the blood of the prince is exterminated. The other people have there's no other people but he in that line has any credit with the people. And as the conqueror before the victory could not put hopes in them is the people. In other words, I could not put any hopes with your helping me. He ought not afterwards feel them, because they didn't remember that line early in the previous book. Those who make you, if someone makes you great, you should fear them. In other words, the danger is making people great that fear the ones who made them great. The people did not, that they didn't help me. I owe them nothing, so I don't fear them. I have the power. The contrary happens in the kingdom in kingdoms governed like France, feudal systems. For you, now, again, this is, again, the familiar here. He moves the second person familiar. For you can enter them easily. You can now, notice, before formal, now he's talking informally, familiar. You can enter them easily. You can take them. You can seduce them. You understand? There's a thing in French drama and Italian drama too. You know, in a French drama, you know that the characters, particularly male and woman character, they're using the you formally in the drama. That's this is then all of a sudden after a scene later, then all of a sudden they're using the you informally. That was a suggestion that they had intimate knowledge of each other. You know, okay. So therefore, this maybe Machiavelli's playing with that too. You. In other words, you can enter them easily, gaining for your gaining for yourself some barons of the kingdom. For for one always finds some malcontents, and those who desire to innovate, and those who desire, so you can always fire someone inside who are malcontents and desire to innovate. These for the reasons said earlier, right, are available to open to you the way to that state and facilitate your victory. Remember all the way back in chapter 2, and earlier said talked about this. There's always someone who's going to be unhappy with the status and want to bring you in. So therefore, this kind of situation is that you can always find malcontents and those who are going to innovate, and they will always are able to open to you the way to that state, and whereupon your desire to maintain it draws after an infinite difficulty. In other words, after you get it, this is where the difficulty comes up. Like, and this is what it talks about. With those who aided you, and with those whom you have opposed. Nor is it enough for you to extinguish the blood of the prince, for there remains those lords who make themselves heads of new disturbances, and being unable to make them content or to extinguish them, you lose that state when the occasion comes. So the state whenever the occasion comes. So that you lose the state whenever the occasion comes. Because why? Even though this lord, you look exterminate that lord, but you can't exterminate all the lords. And the other lords will use that occasion to put themselves as the head of the things of the challenge to the conqueror. Now, if you, the courteous second, he goes now, he went from, okay, very interesting. Started courteously, intimately, the previous thing. Now he goes courteously again. If you consider the nature of Darius's government, Darius III, the last acting emperor, you will find it similar to the kingdom of the Turk. Therefore, it was necessary for Alexander first to smash it all and seize the field. After the victory, with Darius dead, the state was left secure for Alexander for the reasons discussed above. So the centralized state, once you take the head off, once you do that, in a centralized state, everything's centralized. Once you take that, a decentralized state, the problem is that the princes have loyal people. You can get into this situation to get control, but then these people, these prince barons now will soon get unhappy with you and then find the occasion to use the people against you, okay? And then take control. In other words, and it was a success, in other words, and if his successors has remained united, they could have enjoyed it indolently. In other words, had the successors remained united, they could have enjoyed it indolently. In other words, nor did there arise in that kingdom any tumults other than those which they themselves provoked. So they provoked. In other words, what happened was they broke up, and then they started the various generals started fighting against each other. the regional leaders started fighting in interest with their own. In other words, if they stayed together and remained united, nothing would have. They could have been. They could have rooted, as he says, indolently, right? Um, in other words, enjoyed it indolently. In other words, they didn't have to worry about it. But they remember the problems were them, the rulers, the ones who succeeded. Nor did any problems arise among the kingdoms, any tumults other than those which they themselves provoked. But it is impossible to possess states ordered like that of France with such quiet. You couldn't do it. Why? From whence arose each of the many rebellions of Spain, of France, and of Greece against the Romans, because of the many principates which existed in those states. In other words, from whence arose each of the many rebellions of France, Spain, France, and of Greece against the Romans, because of the many principates that existed in those states. While the memory of them endured, the Romans were always uncertain of their possession. So as long as the memory of that state, of those princes and those states, their identity remained. The Romans were how do I say uncertain of their possession, but with their memories extinguished, with the power and the long duration of the empire, they became possessors. In other words, they extinguished the memory of the previous principles. Okay, so the Romans succeeded. In other words, the Romans, you can conquer those places with those strong baronies and strong principates. In other words, France was a problem because it's very difficult to maintain it. And then he uses the example of the Romans conquering Spain, France, and Greece, where they had many principates. But then what do? The Romans extinguish the memory of those through their long empire, right? After they possessed them, even when they were fighting among themselves afterwards, and each drawing a following from a part of these provinces, according to the authority he had in them during the civil wars. Machiavelli is referring to the various factions of Marius, Sulla, Pompey, and Caesar. Right? In other words, they relied. In other words, drawing when they're fighting among themselves afterwards, each drawing a following from a part of these provinces, according to the authority he had in them, and the blood of their lords having been extinguished, these provinces would not recognize anyone who was not a Roman. In other words, they had no memory of their local leaders anymore. They had no more memory of their local identities and their local identity. They only understood the Romans. So therefore, the local, in other words, Romans would come and take loyalty from them. In other words, how the Roman civil wars fought and the thing, right? They would not recognize anyone who was not a Roman. Having considered, then, all these things, no one should marvel at the ease Alexander had in holding the state to the state of Asia, and the difficulties of others had in conserving their acquisitions, like Pyrrhus and many others. In other words, the problem is you had to conserve. Pyrrhus, they did, and many others. They conquered people like this, but they had problems conquering them. They could get in. In other words, Asia was difficulty, but the difficulties others had in conserving the acquisitions, like Pyrrhus and others. Pyrrhus, he comes into the king in I think Syracuse or one of those states there, and that part, and that he's fighting with the Romans, and he's hard to keep it, right? And many others. This does not arise from the greater or lesser virtue of the conqueror, but from the difference of the subject, the province, the subject, the levant, the province, the different natures of the people. In other words, it's the natures of the people. So not only the division of the type of system, but also the nature of the people. This is interesting that at first we get the assumption that the difference is really that of the feudalism of decentralized and centralized. But he ends it with a weird take, suggesting that it's really about not the people. It's you just, in other words, the Roman people. If the people have been lost of their memory, if the people have no memory of what was before, and the only thing they know is the empire or that, they have no loyalty. In other words, they have no loyalty to their local prince or their local rulers. They don't have a identity of their local identity, but only of the larger Roman rule or the rule of of Darius or the rule of Alexander or like that. Right? They have none of this. So the different natures of people, in other words, he ends it, does not arrive from the greater or lesser virtue of the conqueror, but the differences of the subject, the people, in other words, the people, the subjects. The different nature, as it were, two different kinds of matter, which the prince must, with his virtue, mode into his. So the province has two different types. So it's the people, but therefore the other people ordered. There's two things. It's the province is both the land, the kind of jurisdictional issue, but also the population. This is how he ends up. This is a very interesting ending because this raises questions. He's twofold, the twofoldness. One is the land and the jurisdiction, how it's going to be centralized or decentralized. And then the character of the people that they have, either they have memory of their rule, their princes and their identity as a separate province, or that they've lost their memory, that they have no memories of this and only revere, only have memories of the emperor or the ruling lord, okay? This more powerful force. Um, um, and that he must do that. This is again, this he does with the different chapters here. So we'll end here. We'll stop here. If you have any questions, please put them below, and I'll get to them when I see them. If you've liked the channel, like this video, please hit the like button. It helps the video. Like. If you liked it, share it far and wide, because both liking it, hitting the like button, and sharing a video on different social media and social aspects, or even by email, helps what? It helps spread, improve the algorithm and get more attention in the Google YouTube algorithm. And therefore, this would help get more attention to the videos, and maybe people will be able to find it quick, smoother. If you've not subscribed, please consider subscribing. It helps us grow. We'll get the big number soon. I want to hit it. Another thing you can do is encourage other people to check out the channel. Go check out the other videos, not only videos, but the other books we've done in the different playlists. That we covered different books at different times. We did Aristotle's Politics and Ethics. We've done other things, so go check them out. If you didn't like it, you can always say no, but say why in the comments. That's why we can benefit from it. People can benefit from it. Another thing is, if you want to follow me on social media, the social media links are below. If you want to follow me as a scholar and as a researcher to know what I did, my research out and things like that, you can go to the academic social media links below that. If you want to help me to do this, want to be a patron and help the art, subsidize what I do, you can do so through the links, URLs of Subscribestar and Patreon there below. You can go check it out and help, because this will always help. Another way you can help is by buy one of my books. The books are listed below. The currently available books are listed below, and you can order it either through your local bookstore, if you get a local bookstore to order books for you, or you order it online through the online sellers like Barnes & Noble, Amazon, or Libris, or something like that, or you can order directly from the publisher. Well, that's it. We'll turn next to chapter 5. Well, take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.